So the first thing I want you all to think about while we wait for people to get in is why you're here, like why you're interested in being in a webinar about tattooing and the things that, if someone I've tattooed that we've already sort of gone into an experience together, like what the interest is. And if you have something to share around that, you can drop it in the chat. Give me some stuff to work with in terms of being able to frame up what it is that everybody's here for, why they're here. Oh yeah, there's people that are in the Zoom and on the Instagram. Great. Just give it another minute before we start. And it's going to be pretty casual too, hey? Just so everyone knows. Nothing wild. I've just done, how many pages have I got here? 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8 pages of notes, but they're pretty rough. I'm just going to talk to a few things, and I'll probably be doing this again as well. So, if you need to drop out or whatever, if I'm rambling too much about something, you can probably catch it again at some point before Feb, which is when the community is going to start. All right. So, yeah, while you're all thinking about why you're here, and like I said, feel free to add any comments around that. Same on the Instagram. If you want to join in the chat and tell us why you're here, that's great. But why I'm here, to keep it real simple, is just to continue contributing and sort of leaning into and offering more of what it is I've been working with individually with many people that I tattoo. I wonder why I'm leaning in so much sometimes. So I keep checking myself on that, and I can conclude it's not for myself, that's for sure, hence this community layer. And if I haven't worked with you, firstly, thanks for joining in the call. I'm glad that you're interested in what I'm talking about. And the work that I'm referring to that I've been doing is more than just tattooing with people. And I'm sure, like, for some people it is just tattooing, and that's okay if it's just that layer. But some of the other layers that I guess are present when I'm tattooing people is, I guess, witnessing their changes and really paying attention to what's going on for them and helping guide them in that tattoo space, so that the tattoo that they're getting and the process that they're in correlates appropriately to the changes that they're going through. And I can do that now as a result of different things I've learned, different teachers I've had, and time that I've spent with people paying attention to that process. So I've also been actively teaching outside of the tattoo space for a number of years now. We put the 7 principles of tattoo philosophy up in, I think it was 2019. And I've done lots of one-on-one with people since then. And it's just really, that extra stuff's just to help solidify what's happening in the tattoo space. Because when we're tattooing, it's a sacred space. There's a different type of purity there, and there's like different rules that we operate under in the tattoo space compared to the everyday world. So the teaching space during the course was basically just to help that sort of land for people outside of the actual tattoo process, so that people could still have some engagement with myself and other people that had a shared experience around what was happening for them when they get tattooed. And yeah, so I'll have a look and see if I've got any answers here in the chat. April, curious and desire for deep understanding the many depths of tattoo. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, April. Yeah, I think the label that I would give to like why most people are curious around what it is that can be offered through tattooing is that there's more to it. It's a more meaningful experience than just the art, just to give it a label. And so I just want to take a minute and fill in the gap that may be present in what it is that we talk about when it comes to tattooing, especially for any newcomers. If some of the stuff I'm talking about now isn't new, there's still value in listening again to things that I'm saying, even if you've heard me say it or if you've got the understanding on your own. But we'll just sort of like tune our instruments in together so that we are talking about the same thing, and there isn't someone here that's just going, aren't we just talking about tattoos? Well, we're not talking about the superficial level or the surface level. We're actually questioning what a tattoo is. So we're here to talk about what makes tattoos worth paying attention to, especially through time, and what their value is through time. So it's not tattooing as an immediate result. It's not the obvious layer on the skin. We're here to question tattooing and to really, like hold our breath and take a bit of a deep dive into it while we're here together. And while I'm talking, use the chat box. If you have questions that are prompted by something that I'm talking about, please ask, because when I get to the end of my notes, I'm happy to answer questions. And you don't have to wait till the end to ask them. So you can just chuck them in there and I'll get to them and answer them and speak to them at the end. Maybe even we'll sort of turn the mute off and let people ask questions if they want to. So I'm going to take the angle of tattooing as the story of your journey through life, to keep it real simple. That's what getting tattooed is really about at the core. And we're not at the core yet, we're just at the surface. So let's have a look at it. Tattooing is a very complex web. If we think of tattooing currently, globally, our contemporary tattoo culture and the tattoo industry, we haven't really seen the full pattern of it yet. And that's part of this process is taking a real acute observation of what's happening for everyone individually. So that's a personal participation in looking at what tattooing is for yourself and for everyone else. And there's examples of variation within the tattooing web that we're talking about. There's these big spectrums. So there's extremely high quality art, and then there's like anti-art. So we can see like complete polar opposites that exist currently. There's also extremely significant and meaningful tattoo experiences that people have. And there's complete meaningless experiences where people would say it doesn't mean anything at all. We have old cultures or old worlds where their whole tattooing premise is extremely supernatural and highly curated. And we have this new culture, this new world where it's extremely superficial, easily accessible on a whim, and anyone can do it. And so the analogy that I use is that of a river. And we're in this there's this mainstream river that everyone's sort of swept up in. And, this could just be mainstream culture generally, but if we look at tattooing, it's the mainstream tattoo culture. And on the surface, there's a lot going on. It's moving very fast. It's very choppy. And it's just tattoos. Tattoos are just tattoos. That's kind of all there is to it. And if we break away from the mainstream, and that's what the tattoo pathway is about, I suppose. It's this breakaway stream by paying attention to the mainstream and actively choosing to move out of it and participate in something that's more substantial. So looking at what's underneath the mainstream, what's the substance of it. So it's more than a tattoo. So we go from just a tattoo to more than a tattoo. And the undercurrent of that mainstream and the undercurrent of the breakaway stream is actually the same thing, because all tattoos tell that story of your journey. We can read that in anyone. So whether you're in the mainstream or whether you're actively sort of breaking away, going into this side stream of more than a tattoo, we can still read anyone's story. And in the mainstream, the thing that I've observed is that the stories don't make sense. a lot of the time. There's a lot of incongruency. There's a lot of illusion and delusion and confusion, and there's lots of layers. People denying parts of themselves, people carrying parts of other people, big shifts that haven't gone acknowledged in their story, and carrying parts of stories that they no longer need to carry. So your tattoos telling the story of your journey reveals two dimensions that we're going to look at real briefly. The story is the narrative, and the journey speaks to like a navigational aspect of getting tattooed. So we've got story and journey, narration and navigation. The narrative is based in identity. It's the story of who you are. And navigation is based in orientation, so orienting yourself where you've been, where you're going. And if we look at identity and who you are, that's a pretty important piece. And if we look at orientation, where you've been, it's also going to line you up with where you're going. Where you're going is your purpose a lot of the time, or it's your why. Okay, this is where meaning and mattering and caring about your tattoos and the story that they tell really comes into it. Where you've been is your past. It can be read in your tattoos. Who you are is your present. It can be read in your tattoos. And who you are and where you've been is going to aim you where you're going. Where you're going is your future. So we get the past, present, and future, I guess, synthesis that can be seen in tattooing. We've taken just tattooing, we've looked at it as more, it's the story of your journey, of your life. We dissect that into parts. Your tattoo is actually about who you are, where you've been, where you're going, and why that matters. So what's any of this got to do with tattooing? Well, tattooing it's a process and it changes you. So everyone can sort of agree at the surface level that you get tattooed and you change, you look different. So that is also altering your course through your life. It's not just a physical alteration every time. Every choice that you make, everything that you do does that. There's these little minuscule alterations to your course every time you're making a choice, any choice. But how often are we actually making a choice? A lot of people talk to me about this when I get there. They're like, well, maybe it's just all predetermined. They start going into the neurological pathways and synapses of decision making, and I'd say that the only choice you ever have, because I agree with people on that, a lot of the time we're just running programs, the only choice you ever have is to be aware enough to make a choice that's not coming from a place that's a program in a moment. It's to be present. And again, that's kind of the role that a process that's elevated out of the everyday, like tattooing, is meant to nurture and facilitate for people. It's meant to be a place where you take time out from the program, from the everyday, and pay really close attention to what's happening. Cultivate, expand your awareness and focus, and make a decision. You make choice consciously in that moment. And so if you're not being conscious in a moment of tattooing like that, you're just making a choice like every other choice, which probably is, coming from some program that you're already carrying or you've inherited or whatever. Okay, so making meaning. For your tattoos to be meaningful, you have to be living a meaningful life. And all tattoos mean something, right? But what I'm going to go into here is something that I learned recently through a course with John Vervaeke. I don't know if anyone's heard of him, but he's like a cognitive scientist. And he was breaking down ritual in this course as a way of knowing that's rational. And his work is on the meaning crisis in this world. And he has a community as well. Seeing the things he's doing has been really, really useful and helped, I guess, push me towards actually actioning something like this, because you need community to create real meaning in your life. And so meaning not at the superficial level either, at a substantial level. So not like my tattoo has this meaning because the picture means this. Its actual place in your life, in that story. So psychologically, what makes life worth living is the question that he was asking. In the face of suffering, because it's inevitable. Okay, so what keeps you going? What makes your life worth living in the face of suffering? And research shows that you need four things. One's coherence. So it needs to be intelligible. It needs to make sense. And it implies structure and rules and guidelines. So this would be if you're looking at like a video game, the rules of the game, so to speak. What you're doing needs to make sense. The second thing you need is purpose, which is an overarching goal for your life. So all of your other pursuits in your everyday need to feed into and be working towards one thing. They need to connect and join. That's your purpose. And then you need significance, which is a depth to that reality. So you need to actually care about it and care about the guidelines, care about the goal. The purpose is also like the quest of the video game, I'd say. So coherence is the guidelines. The purpose is the goal or the quest. And then you need to care about it, that significance. And the last one, which I think is kind of the most important, is mattering. So all of this needs to be connected to something beyond self-interest. They need to actually matter in the world, not just in our own world. They need to matter beyond us. And so we can conclude that meaning in life is not just about your purpose or your self-identity, which we've pointed to as being present in tattooing. Anyway, it needs to fit within some guidelines and it needs to matter beyond self-significance. This is something that's really obvious in the old world of tattooing, right? It needs to fit within some guidelines. It needs to matter beyond self-significance. So the story of your life, even when we go into like, okay, it's not just the result, it's the story of your life. It doesn't quite cut it because it leaves the coherence and the mattering out. Guidelines and mattering beyond self. So this is the main thing that's really, I guess, catalyzed the tattoo pathway community aspect, beyond working with people one-on-one, beyond doing the coursework, which I guess is already some guidelines for people, something to give them some structure. But this is more about the nesting of that, the village, the mythology of people that are participating in something. So yeah, the guidelines and mattering beyond self, it's something that I've definitely been working with people on in their tattoo process for a long time. It's probably why it's been landing for people, working, integrating. And it's been perfect to a degree, I suppose. But I'm in this place where I'm connecting with all of these people and seeing their stories and then seeing them go back out in the world. And they don't know each other. It's like these people in this village that have this shared language and shared experience that then go out into a completely disconnected world, which is, it's been a tricky thing to really navigate myself. But I was lucky. I had the experience of being in a hoop in the past with one of my teachers. A lot of people that I've tattooed know this and have heard me talk about it a lot. But I had a teacher. He had a very old world system, way of teaching, Native American. So there was a hoop. We did things together. We did vision quests. We did sweat lodges. He tattooed people. And so I experienced that nesting in that village, that mattering beyond self, those guidelines that were held and that everyone shared, and the things you did there, the things you achieved that gave you your purpose and your substance, were acknowledged and witnessed, and it was a really beautiful thing. It's probably the thing that's actually moved me into this place of being able to be a father, a husband, be in service of the people I'm tattooing. It all stems from this very small experience that I had in the scheme of the world. It was tiny, but it was so substantial in developing myself. And so I see there's that feeding into the tattoo process all the time with people. And I'm sure all over the place, but then there's still this big gap and this distance, and not necessarily the sort of cohesion that may be possible I mean, we'll see. So that's meaning in life. If we overlay those 4 things into tattooing and look at meaning in tattoos, psychologically, what makes tattooing worth doing? So in the face of the pain of tattooing, in the face of the cost and the permanence, what makes it valuable and renders it useful through time? And feel free to give responses to this as I go as well. Like I said, the chat's there. I'm gonna get to it. So if I'm even asking, rhetorical questions, you can answer them if you want, and I'll get to it. And so far, we've clarified 2 things in that tagline at the start. The story of our journey through life, narrative navigation. So there's 2 utilities that Tattoo Pathway offers to people that really capture and leverage those things. And one's record keeping. These are part of the Tattoo Pathway pillars, right? So record keeping and navigational assistance. So these are intrinsic to the tattoo process. Yeah, and that's not to say that everyone getting tattooed utilizes them, but they're there, it's happening. Yeah, so there's 2 aspects that make it highly valuable, highly profitable to any individual, and it's not always being used. It's not always being gained from. So the person that gets tattooed isn't acquiring the worth of their tattoo a lot of the time. If you've done stuff with me before, it's the alluvial gold analogy. There's value that gets brought to the surface naturally through getting tattooed. And if you're in that breakaway stream, you start to collect that worth. You start to use it. So I'm making the supposition as well, and it's up for debate. I'm happy to hear people's opinions, but if you're not making use of these aspects within your tattoos consciously, that's the record keeping and the navigational aspect, then you're probably adrift in that mainstream river. Your process is probably lacking a level of substantiated meaning. Not to say it's not meaningful to you, but it's probably on the surface, and there's probably a deeper layer that you're able to go to. And so that leaves us with the question of how do you actually make use of the record keeping aspect and the navigational aspect? How do they work? How can you extract the value? What are the steps? What's the process? And the way I've been doing it for the past few years with people is using two tools. Well, one tool mainly that's developed the other. And it's developed out of really close work with my clients, observing, asking lots of questions, and people actually doing the work. Again, this is the community aspect. It's like people have to be doing it actively. And so the first one's mapping. And mapping is born out of the record keeping. It's where you've been. So it's a ledger of your tattoo history. It's the full evidence of the case. That's how you arrive at the truth of the story, what the actual story is, not the story the person up on the stand is telling themselves in the world, like being fully combed and getting all of the subconscious material and making it conscious, thoroughly reimagining and remembering everything that's happened at the points that you've been tattooed, that you carry as a record. And building on that is the Pathfinder, which is the navigational step. And that's where you're going, taking aim, setting intentions, using that map and that information of the past to steer you towards the future. So these 2 things give us a bit of a recipe for a meaningful tattoo, but that has to be embedded in a larger culture. That's the piece that, I've sort of identified as being missing, and that's pushing this thing that's coming. It's what's driving me to go beyond myself and an individual and beyond a course into a process that's more collective and a space with community. So yeah, these are the tools that I share. They offer the dimension of coherence. You've got guidelines, help place yourself, your tattoos, your experience in a way that fits and it starts to make sense. And so like an example, if I give some examples of mapping, because that's the one that's sort of been, I guess, exercised the most with people. There's that first simple layer. There's the evidence of the case. And doing the mapping can be really hard. So I started mapping my tattoos 5 years ago. I haven't finished. This is like kind of the situation a lot of tattoo artists would probably find themselves in, is we get tattooed You know, again, not with no meaning, but it's just easier. There's like real easy access as a tattoo artist, and it's also becomes common because we're doing this thing that, you know, even if we see it as sacred and it's elevated, we're doing it a lot more than most people. So it's easy to get tattooed. But then for people that aren't tattooing, just getting tattooed, it's doing the mapping. If you've already got a lot of skin in the game, can be quite a task. Or if you're going through a bit of a transition or challenge with who you are in life, generally, if that's already been cracked open, what the tattoos reveal can be quite hard, but highly valuable. And again, so needing support there is part of this community space. You know, this year, it's not next year yet, this year we ran the course, it was 5 weeks. I think mapping was in the middle. Everyone's turning up, loving the course, participating. We do mapping, everybody disappears. Everybody that stays on is like totally stalled, just like gobsmacked trying to get through the mapping. And I think it's because we try and just like, we see these things like, okay, it's exercise I have to do, and then it's done, where it's starting to become very evident. It's an ongoing process. Mapping's ongoing. You got to like keep checking in with it as something in your life correlates to that particular piece of information, or as you approach that tattoo or whatever it happens to be. And so like the more advanced layers of mapping, just to share some of it, is there's lots of different layers of maps. You know, on your phone, you can have like the satellite version, you can have the street version, you can have the navigational, you can have the street view. So all of these different layers, and it's the same when we're looking at our tattoos and mapping them. So there's the psychological map, there's the tattoo map, there's the body map, and they get used together to create a bit of a more holistic system, self-reflective and personal exploration system. Psychological map provides insights into your internal landscape, your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs. The tattoo map is the obvious one. You know, it's the record of the tattoos, the external timeline of the art, the symbols, the milestones expressed through tattoos. And the body map guides the placement of these tattoos, or in a lot of cases, they're already placed. You already have lots of tattoos. And so there's a map that's there that helps align them with deeper layers of meaning that's tied to specific areas of the body. And together, they create a framework for people where they can explore their inner psychological world, the outer expression, you know, their tattoos, and then harmonize them on the body map. Yeah, so you're integrating all these deeper layers of information that are coming up about your journey, and that your tattoos are acting as this unique reflective process to enhance your self-awareness, to direct your walk and your healing and your sense of connection, not just to yourself, but to the world. So that's part of, I guess, like, extracting that value is the mapping. And it's huge, but it's one little piece of the Pathfinder. So once you have that part in place, you move into using this Pathfinder, you know, and mapping sits behind you. And then you start looking at all of the other forces that are influencing you as well. What's in front of you, what's to your left, what's to your right, what's above you, what's below you, what's within you. These all correlate to different areas of I guess, investigation and learning and influence, which is all in the community space mapped out for everyone to go through at their own pace together. And like, just so everyone knows, it's like, I'm fully in this. The community is for me too. Like, I need it as well. I need people in there so I can be going through my own process and trying to make sense of it. I don't have all the answers here. We're just trying to bring really old and ancient ways of doing things and really advanced and modern things in together to try and move forward. Okay, so we've definitely left the surface now and broken away from the mainstream tattoo narrative, but we're going to start to come back up a bit now out of the real deep stuff, and get some air. So the point of presenting this information is to, one, share and offer some of these insights that there is around the more to tattooing. And obviously some of you are already in a significant relationship with your tattoos and life already. You're already looking at the more. For example, people I've already tattooed or done the course with. And, you know, if that's you, you can, like, from your own mouth, like in the chat box, you know, like, has approaching your tattoos in this way been beneficial? Does it help with different aspects of your life? You know, you can just say yes or put something in there, because there's people on here that haven't done any of it before, and I think it'd be good to hear it from other people's mouths. But also, I'm here to offer that invitation to everyone into the community, just letting people know that's what I'm doing next year. That's where I'm placing my time and energy and attention. Other than tattooing people one-on-one, I'm going to really, I guess, can consolidate where my energy is going, which, you know, through the years has been super spread out. You know, obviously I've got family and a life and I'm tattooing people, but then, like I said, off the back of getting tattooed, people need support. And I end up in this space with lots of different people. And so I'm just trying to sort of tighten that and bring those threads together, because you can all support each other as well, and me, if we focus and make a space for that. So that's the point of offering it up for next year. It's getting together in person as well. It's not just online. So the invitation for the community is like this. In our river analogy, the breakaway river, it's like, for those that are choosing to break away from the mainstream, we're going to have like an on the ground village, you know. So in person, 3 times next year, we're going to get together. And that's going to be a really beautiful space, I'm sure. Doing some deep things, get into some ceremony, get into some socializing, and do that. For people that can't do that, though, we've also got this space, right, which is online. So that's the old part, the village. This is the really advanced part, the online. This is something we haven't had before, which I think is going to be really special, because it allows us to share like a liminal space in between those in-person events and keep things going, you know. And it's also a space that will connect us in co-working on projects. We can also socialize, share things, support throughout the year, learn, unlearn things. And when it comes to the mainstream, the everyday, which we're all part of, it's like, if that place like is getting too much, this online space means, like, even though you're out in the everyday, we're not living in the old days, we're not out in the village on the edge of a river. It's like you still have somewhere that's substantial that you can come into to have a deeper reflection, or to get something that you need to keep you going in the everyday, because we're all there. And also, if it's too much and you need the everyday, you just need the surface level. It's like, it's just an online community. Just don't be in it. Just take space from it. So I think there is something really valuable in this online space that like has showed up in the past. I mean, so many people from the first couple of courses over the past 4 years like have really deep friendships now. And we weren't trying to coordinate any of it. It was just people catching up with each other off the back of meeting online. So I think, yeah, there's definitely benefit. And so the community is part of addressing a couple of things. One, lack of guidance and lack of fittedness. Okay, so it's like that coherence and mattering beyond self. That's a big part of the community as well. Offering guidance, offering some structure. It's a working structure. Like I said, I don't have all the answers. It's just like, here's what's obvious. Here's what's there. Let's work with it and build on it and see what more is there. You know, which parts of the structure are integral and like obviously need to be there and stand, and which ones don't, so that there's something that's valuable to share beyond us, you know, next generation thinking potentially. That'd be really nice. And lack of fittedness, you know, so even within this like more and more secular and disconnected world, having people that have the shared perspective, shared experience, shared knowing, and trying to weave that more. Okay, so joining the community obviously is going to be of high value for the individual, you know, for you, yeah. But also, I want to talk about Tattoo Pathway as something that's bigger than like me trying to make benefit or you guys coming in for your own benefit. And again, the pathway is something that's a bit bigger, framing it up like that. So joining the community is also going to be like support and contribution to that mission and vision. Yeah, helping cultivate Tattoo Pathway, you know. And I'm just gonna share a screen to go into what the mission and vision is for people that haven't like been on the website that's been up for the year. I mean, it's fresh, so share screen options. Multiple participants can share simultaneously, one at a time. Let's do that. Okay, desktop. Can you guys let me know when you're seeing my screen? Seeing it? Yeah, okay. More than a tattoo. More than a tattoo, here's the pathway. You know, we approach tattooing as a sacred practice that can guide people seeking more meaningful experience to record, reflect, and integrate transitional periods in their lives in an applicable way. Yeah. Online community coming about us. Mission and vision. Our mission through education, which is what we're trying to do with the course, grounded in applied practice. You know, so like we're doing this with people, leading research. This year was our first year of research with Taylor leading that, and I don't know exactly where we're posting the research, but she's found some pretty amazing things, especially around like regret, age of people engaging with tattooing, all sorts of pieces. And the mission is to provide a clear pathway so that people can engage with full knowledge, you know, consciously. So they're not just participating as something that's what we've inherited. That's just like, you know, the tattoo studio art thing. Visions for future generations to be custodians of the pathway that sacred leads to being dignified in their beauty. And there's the pillars. So we were talking about these ones, right? Navigational aid, record keeping. These are the other pillars that we go into when we're in the community. And so here's what the community looks like and what you get if you jump in. It's very empty at the moment, okay? But you jump in, there's an onboarding, waiting room, checklist, just to sort of guide people to introduce themselves and understand what's happening. You know, you can ask questions, do introductions, all that sort of thing. But these are the two important spots. The learning, so the learning, you're going to get the textbook. That's the whole course. So you join the community and you get the whole course. But we're not going to go through the course like we have before. The course isn't there as like we're going to check in every week and be doing a workbook in a classroom. That's not what the community is about. The textbook's there to go through at your own pace, and so we can reference it. But we've got this section here, the journey, the toolkit, that's the mapping and the navigational aid. The journey is a bit of a recommended approach using the information to go through your tattoos and come back through the cycle of getting tattooed and reflecting. Lectures will be popping up, things every month that I think are relevant or people are asking about. So obviously the podcast, events, and then there's all these sections, a lot of them kind of relating to the most poignant parts of people's processes that have come up in the past and through the course. Ancestry, a greater power, symbolic play. I'm really excited about symbolic play and story time, because in that section, we're going to start learning a shared mythology that's quite modern, but builds on old structures to sort of help embed the information and the learning for people in a way so they go like, okay, this actually does mean something and make sense, because I have this really timeless structure here that fits with my current world, fits with the people I'm doing this with, also fits with the mainstream, helps me make sense of it. So that's there. That's what the community looks like. That's our mission and vision. And then to sort of wrap up before I ask any questions, how it's going to work is you can either sign up to the community for like 3 months or a year. I think we're saying it's going to be like $99 for a month, and there's a discount if you sign up for a year. The reason I'm not doing a month is you're not really going to experience it if you do a month. And like no one wants like monthly subscriptions happening. So it's kind of like you're in a position to jump in at least for a quarter or not. And if you're not, you can talk to me too. It's like at the end of the day, I have been and will continue to just be doing this with everyone anyway. We're just formalizing to try and like, you know, float the boat forward a bit more. But yeah, so it's 3 months or 12 months. And you get access to that page that I just showed you, where there'll be things happening every week. So every week there's going to be like engagement if you're sort of there for the week, if you want to do it. Live calls, group calls, me presenting stuff, opportunity to do one-on-one things if you're in a tattoo process. There's going to be a lot in it. And then obviously the in-person that I said, there's going to be 3 a year. So the first one's 1st and 2nd of Feb. And we're going to kick that off with some symbolic play. We're going to be building a structure to get the pillars embedded in everyone's process, and do some purification, probably do a sauna of sorts. We'll make something and do that. And just so that everyone can really sort of connect and actually, those that can be there can be there. And we'll stream something of that nature as a bit of a launch for the online community too. But just to put wind in the sails moving forward until the middle of the year. And so why is it a good choice? It's a good choice because there aren't many people doing this sort of thing. I don't know if you'll find much of it. Been at it for a while, 16 years tattooing now. We've done we started the research thing. We're going to keep doing that. We've got the education thing there. It's a work in process, and you don't have to do it alone. So I think that's a big part. You're not doing it alone. It's guided. Who's it for? Just to talk to some different people that could be considering it. It's, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, it makes sense. You've got an inner knowing. It'll be very useful. Jump in. There's also the professional development aspect, like for other artists or therapists. So lots of artists have done the training in the courses already and have been sort of like hanging on and waiting to go deeper into the stuff that's specifically for people giving tattoos. And there's also other practitioners, that are working with people and understanding how their tattoos influence their clients and the people working with is kind of useful. So there's that area too, which like I'm tentative with it, but I'm going to lean in. Like if people have done the coursework or they're like up to date with it in terms of there's no gaps in what we're talking about, then I'm happy to lean into that with them. Probably a bit of an extra thing within the community. Spoken to a few artists about that. If you're in, you know what I'm talking about. And I think that's all I got. I think that's what I wanted to get out there. So like I said, I'm gonna keep doing this thing anyway. I'm just trying to make it really clear and open to everyone where I see it going beyond our like individual engagements, and wanting to, or like really genuinely want to sort of establish some community for people. Like I said, I already see everyone I'm working with as a community. I'm this old guy out in the hills that doesn't really interact with the world much. And then all these people come out and get tattooed by me that I see have these amazing connections and similarities and can do great things together. And I want to connect people all the time. And I have in many cases, but we're just trying to tighten that. So that's what it's about. And yeah, thanks for jumping in and listening to me talk about it.